Every few years, Hollywood makes a bet that feels genuinely exciting. Not a sequel, not a reboot, not a superhero film we've seen 12 variations of, a real original director-driven swing. Mickey 17 was supposed to be one of those bets paying off. You had Bong Joon Ho, the guy who just won Best Picture for Parasite, the first foreign language film to ever do it. You had Robert Pattinson, one of the most interesting actors working today. You had Warner Bros. Writing a big check and stepping back. And yet, despite all of that, Mickey 17 opened to under $20 million domestically and is now projected to lose somewhere in the range of $75 million during its theatrical run. So today I want to dig into how this happened. Because this isn't a story about a bad movie bombing. It's a story about a genuinely good movie that the industry somehow still managed to fumble. Let's get into it. The road to the screen, the story starts with a book. A film adaptation of Edward Ashton's novel Mickey 7 was announced to be in development in January 2022, with Bong Joon Ho writing, directing, and producing for Warner Bros. Pictures and Robert Pattinson in early talks to star. The premise is exactly the kind of thing that makes you understand why Bong was drawn to it. Set in the year 2054, the plot follows a man who joins a space colony voyage as an expendable, a disposable worker who is cloned every time he dies. Big ideas about identity, mortality, and what it means to be human wrapped in a sci-fi package. Classic Bong territory. Bong wrote the screenplay in 2021 based on an early draft of the book and made many changes to the characters, including modifying Mickey's personality to be a little more simple-minded. Notably, this also marks the first time Bong had written a screenplay without a co-writer. On top of that, he renamed several characters after football players. The number 17 itself is reportedly a nod to Manchester City midfielder Kevin De Bruyne's shirt number. That kind of detail tells you everything about how personally invested Bong was in this project. Production began at Warner Bros. Studios, Leavesden on August 2, 2022, and concluded in December 2022. By all accounts, the shoot itself went smoothly. Pattinson later described Bong's method as unusually precise, shooting only what was needed, moving fast, with total confidence in the plan. The cast was stacked. Alongside Pattinson, the film included Steven Yeun, Naomi Ackie, Toni Collette, and Mark Ruffalo. This had every ingredient of a prestige hit. Then things got complicated. The delayed part of Mickey 17 was originally scheduled to be released in March 2024. It was taken off Warner Bros. Its theatrical schedule due to the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike, which delayed its reshoots and the extensive post-production process. That much is straightforward. But the delays didn't stop there. It was rescheduled for January 34th, 2025, then pushed back to April 18, 2025 before eventually landing on March 7. 3 different release dates across more than a year. And during that period, rumors started circulating about something more than just strike-related logistics. Reports suggested a dispute between Bong and Warner Bros. Over the final cut, with the studio reportedly wanting a more accessible version and Bong pushing back. Multiple test screenings were said to have taken place. The January slot it briefly landed in, historically one of the worst release windows in the calendar, fueled further speculation that Warner wasn't fully confident in what they had. For his part, Bong publicly attributed the delays to the strikes. He stated, "These external factors led to the delays, not complications with re-edits or reshoots. The film was first contracted on the condition of me having final cut, and the studio let me have creative control." Whether the behind-the-scenes reality fully matches that account is something we may never know for certain. What we do know is that Pattinson himself acknowledged that getting the film across the finish line wasn't a given, saying, "It's really cool that a studio has done this film, and that Bong pushed to have the final cut on it to make something that does feel incredibly unusual." That's a diplomatic way of saying it wasn't easy. Mickey 17 opened at number 1 domestically with around $19 million from nearly 3,800 theaters. On its face, that sounds okay. It's not. The film cost $118 million after tax rebates, a high price for an original offbeat space odyssey, and Warner Bros. Spent an additional estimated $80 million on marketing, including a $4 million spot during the AFC Championship. To understand what that means in practice, Mickey 17's break-even point was somewhere around $300 million worldwide. It opened globally to around $53 million. In its second weekend, the film dropped over 60%, finishing third behind two new releases. That kind of fall-off signals weak word of mouth. Audiences who saw it weren't urgently telling their friends to go. The film was projected to end its theatrical run with somewhere around $143 million worldwide, which against a $300 million break-even point tells you everything you need to know. Industry sources estimated losses in the range of $75 to $80 million during its theatrical run, though a source close to the film disputed that figure, saying the true losses were significantly less. Either way, nobody is calling this a success. Good director, great cast, solid reviews, #1 at the box office opening weekend. How does that add up to a $75 million loss? A few reasons. The budget was simply too high for what it was. The production budget alone totaled $118 million, technically cheaper than a Marvel film, but wildly expensive for what translates to an original movie for a general audience. It's based on a book, but that hardly makes it a franchise picture in the eyes of a ticket buyer. Compare that to some similar sci-fi originals. The Creator opened to $14 million in 2023. Ad Astra opened to $19 million in 2019. Jupiter Ascending to around $18 million in 2015. Mickey 17 performed right in line with those films. The difference is none of those movies cost $118 million to make. Mickey 17 is Byzantine and cold in its execution. That's not a knock, it's a description of what kind of film it is. Parasite was a tightly wound thriller that audiences could follow and champion. Mickey 17 is weirder, more digressive, and more demanding. The marketing had a difficult job communicating what kind of experience audiences were buying a ticket for, and based on the numbers, it didn't fully crack that problem. The R rating cut off a meaningful part of the potential audience. Some industry observers noted after opening weekend that a PG-13 cut could plausibly have opened the film up to a significantly wider audience, particularly families with older kids who were drawn to Pattinson from his bigger franchise work. As it stood, the film's rating combined with its unusual tone created a narrow target audience. The delays damaged momentum. The studio shifted the movie several times, kicking it out of 2024 and bouncing it between multiple 2025 slots. That kind of uncertainty doesn't just affect scheduling, it affects the perception of a film before a single person has seen it. By the time March 2025 arrived, the film had been a coming soon story for over 2 years. Some of that anticipation inevitably curdled into skepticism. Here's where the story gets genuinely frustrating, because yes, it largely is. The premise: Pattinson, playing a disposable clone who comes back to life after each death, gives the film a built-in ability to examine identity and self-worth in ways that feel fresh. And Pattinson is excellent in it. He's playing a character who is fundamentally underestimated by everyone around him, including himself. And he finds real pathos in that without ever overplaying it. The supporting cast, particularly Mark Ruffalo going completely unhinged as the expedition's demagogue leader, adds to the fun considerably. The film's visual invention is consistent and genuinely impressive. Bong has always been a filmmaker who thinks carefully about how information is delivered visually, and Mickey 17 is full of sequences where the how of the storytelling is as interesting as the what. That said, it's not a perfect film. The pacing in the second act loses some of the tightness that made Parasite such a propulsive watch. There are stretches where the satire, which is pointed at populism, authoritarianism, and disposable labor, becomes a bit heavy-handed. And the film's tone shifts so frequently between comedy, horror, and something approaching heartbreak that not every transition lands cleanly. The critical consensus put around 78% on Rotten Tomatoes, with the site's summary noting it finds Bong Joon Ho returning to his forte of daffy sci-fi with a withering social critique at its core. That's a fair summary. It's a film with real ambition that doesn't entirely fulfill it, but the ambition alone puts it above most of what came out that same month. The cinema score of B tells the real story though. That grade reflects audiences who saw it and came away mildly satisfied rather than enthusiastic. In a theatrical landscape where original films need genuine word of mouth to survive, mildly satisfied isn't enough. Mickey 17 is the kind of failure that should worry Hollywood more than a straightforward bad movie bombing. This was the system working. A prestige filmmaker, a bankable star, a major studio giving creative freedom. and it still didn't connect at the scale the budget demanded. Nearly every film in the global top 10 in 2024 was a sequel. The biggest original movie was It Ends With Us at $350 million, but that had a very reasonable budget. Christopher Nolan directing Oppenheimer to nearly $1 billion is the exception, not the rule. Mickey 17 isn't a cautionary tale about a bad bet. It's a cautionary tale about an expensive bet on a genuinely unusual film in a market that has become increasingly hostile to anything that doesn't already have a built-in audience. Whether that's a studio problem, an industry problem, or just the reality of where movie-going is in 2025, that's a debate worth having. But what do you think? Did you see Mickey 17? Did it deserve better? And do you think Warner Bros. Should keep making these kinds of bets, or has the math just stopped making sense? Let me know in the comments.